Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Clarity in Commerce. This is the interview series brought to you by the Mars Agency, where we host informative conversations about key trends in commerce marketing with some of the talented and forward-thinking professionals who we get the pleasure of working with on a daily basis as our clients and our partners. Our topic today is the benefits of universal standards for retail media. Our guest for the discussion couldn't be any more ideal because she's not only one of the foremost leaders in the retail media marketplace, she's also one of the leading voices calling for industry standards. And she is Kristi Argyilan, Senior Vice President of Retail Media at Albertsons Companies, where she heads up the Albertsons Media Collective. Now, the Collective is a relatively new entry to the retail media marketplace, but in not much more than a year, they've been pretty instrumental in improving the practice overall through open dialogue and collaboration with advertising partners. Before joining Albertsons, Kristi also spent time at Target, where she was instrumental in building the Roundel Media Network. So using the word pioneer, probably appropriate here as well. Kristi, thank you so much for being here with us today and giving us some of your time.
Happy to be here, Peter. Thanks for asking me to join you.
Okay, and if it's okay and you're ready, I will just start asking you the questions.
All right, let's get to it.
Okay, now I know there is a lot going on in this space these days, but if you could kind of just give us what you think the key trends are right now across the retail media landscape.
Yeah, and you certainly understand that retail media has been around for a long time. It started as shopper marketing, and then once digital came to the forefront and all of the first-party data that we were able to gather on our customer behaviors, suddenly shopper marketing evolved to retail media. What I'm excited about right now is that the whole world has discovered it. And I think that it started when Amazon started to talk about the revenue and the profit that they were making on their ad business, that other retailers started to really take notice. But then when you started to marry that with the accountability that goes with retail media, advertisers are really starting to take notice right now. And it's a super exciting time to see article after article talk about the growth that is expected for retail media. And as a pioneer, as somebody who's been in this space for a while, it's super exciting to see the momentum and the recognition of the strength and the power of what retail media can bring. At the same time that cookie deprecation is on the table and the need for scaled first-party data is a must for all digital marketing. The way that I think about it is that retail media is leading the next big wave of digital media. So it's a super exciting time right now.
Okay, what are your brand partners telling you? How satisfied are they with their network partners right now?
I think that they are, you hear it if you go from one industry event to another. Anywhere between we're super excited about incrementality and the fact that retail media can show that they're driving incremental sales to you're a tax, it's hard to engage with you, you're all different. So you can see where we are in terms of our real life cycle, our life stage. We're still very infantile. Was that a compliment? That may not have been a great word. We're still in our infancy. There we go. We're still in our infancy, and there's a lot of bugs for us to work out.
Okay, so how have you folks at Albertsons Media Collective been responding to those calls?
Yeah, a lot of it is that first and foremost, is that we really lean on transparency. And that one of the bigger barriers that clients, advertisers are feeling right now is that they just don't know how is ROAS calculated, how are your audiences built. And so the idea of leaning in with transparency is a really important part for us. The other benefit that we have is because we're a late mover to the retail media space, Albertsons Media Collective is, we're able to use the testing and the vetting and the work that other retail media networks have done to date so that we're able to jump in on next generation when there's an opportunity to understand how computing power is changing things. All of our customer data is in one place. Albertsons itself doesn't have a lot of legacy data and technology that it's relying on to operate, because the whole company is going through a transformation. So we're just in a fresher, stronger place right now, because so much of what we're doing is based on today and where the market is going versus trying to make things of the past work for today's needs.
And if we can get to our main topic, why is there such a strong need for industry standards?
Well, each retail media network is a snowflake, because we were all born out of the legacy systems and just, the personalities and the structures of the companies that we were born out of. And so what's happening for CPGs in particular, who are the biggest advertisers with retail media networks, they are actually having to invest a ton of time and headcount to figuring out how to normalize us to each other, so that they can understand how to gauge performance of the different retail media networks, and then to show back to their companies the benefit of spending a lot of money with retail media. And that's not sustainable for them to have to constantly work to just normalize ROAS. And what they really want is incrementality, iROAS. It's sending us backwards, and it's a really big pain point for them. And we hear that constantly as we go from one set of client meetings to another. And some of the major advertisers are publicly talking about the need for standardization. And so they're really, really leading the call to action for all of us as an industry.
Okay, but if I can ask, what makes retail media different? You talked a little bit about the history. Retailers historically really have done their own thing, really weren't too worried about how differently the competition might be acting or trying to standardize. Why is it different with retail media?
I think, if you think about it, it's programmatic 1998. And I made up that year, but it was the 90s when programmatic needed to be standardized and digital marketing needed to be, or digital media needed to be standardized. And that's when the IAB leaned in back then to drive some of the kind of the foundational standardization that was needed. And for us to realize the full potential, so the 200, 300% growth that's being projected for retail media, we will never realize that if we don't standardize. We will never get to a place where we might be stealing share of spend from television or social or some of the really big media platforms if we don't get over the standardization hurdle. If we're this hard to engage with now, all that'll happen is that advertisers will invest the minimum in us and not the maximum.
Is it moving beyond the trade, kind of playing in the upper funnel areas?
Exactly. Yeah, to move left up the funnel, we really need to be easier to engage with.
Okay. Now, specifically, what needs to be standardized?
Yeah, the things that we're focused on sit around creative assets. And, this goes, again, think of the IAB playbook for digital. There are set standards for the creative assets. That's a no-brainer. Methodology around ROAS and iROAS. Can we agree on that and then innovate on top of it, but start with the same baseline? What partners are in our ecosystem, and what are the differences in those partners, as well as how are the different capabilities within a retail media network built? That's an important piece too. And then also just, the table stakes, which is third-party verification. So where do we stand on viewability and brand suitability? And are we aligned as a media sector in that space too? So those are just some of the pillars that we talk about.
Okay, and I think you've covered this a little bit already, but if you could kind of just run through the main benefits for the three key constituents, for advertisers, for retailers, and then for shoppers.
Yeah, for shoppers in particular, I think that it's really important that, standardization can do things like clean up the ad experience and therefore the shopping experience. If you think of retail media is injected into the shopping experience, are we continuing to create an elegant, informative, beneficial shopping experience for a customer? So that's a real important piece. For the advertiser, what it does is it just makes it easier for them to show to their companies that their marketing investment is actually driving business outcomes and driving sales. And so standardization, comfort in knowing that ROAS and iROAS is calculated in a way that they believe in, and that we're transparent about it, takes the mistrust, no guessing, out of whether or not a campaign actually drove sales. And then for us, the benefit is that, you know, it will lift all boats, and we can get out of the place of us feeling like a tax in the relationship between a brand and a merchant, to take that rub out of the relationship. So it's really about all businesses growing is a really important piece. And, you know, if we are here to help fund the growth and the evolution of Albertsons as a retailer or Walmart as a retailer, it's really important that we can maximize the benefit of what we bring to our customers and our clients, so that our growth can fund some of the ways that we need to evolve as retailers, so that we can do drive up and go. We can allow our shoppers, our customers, to shop us however they want to, but it takes a cash investment in our business. And that cash is generated through the higher margin businesses like retail media.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what work is going on right now? I know you've mentioned the IAB, and I know you're involved there.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're focused on right now, and we'll talk about and while we're at Cannes, is the need to fuel more of a movement, more of a coalition. There are a lot of us talking about the need for standardization, but it's hard to know how to coalesce around it. And so if you take the activities that the IAB is doing, that the ANA is doing, that individual retailers are doing, retail media networks are doing, and that even the agencies are doing, and the brands, we need to give everyone something to coalesce around, so that we can start to make the decisions around these different pillars to where the rub is in the relationship between brands and retail media networks. So we've done a lot of work. We've actually engaged McKinsey to help us create a framework that can start to drive more of a coalition, so that we as an industry can come together and discuss these couple of areas, and then determine how we're going to standardize, so we can take that out of the equation, and then we can start to innovate on top of it. And any of us who have been in a client meeting, we come in with these really strong, exciting innovation agendas, but we end up talking for most of the time about how our ROAS was calculated, and how it compares to somebody else's ROAS, and do we like the ROAS, and then, you know, then can we get to incrementality and iROAS? So to take that out of the equation so we can talk about moving forward is really going to be a big uplift for the industry overall. And so these 4 pillars in this framework is an important tool to use for all of us to talk to each other about.
Okay. And now once you set the standards as an industry, what do we need to do to move it forward and make sure that it happens?
Yeah, we see this as being something that eventually is in the hands of the IAB, similar to the standards that they have set for all of the other areas within digital marketing. It's the appropriate place for it to reside once we kind of get the movement up and going and moving forward. And they're very engaged in the conversations with us. And so we have a lot of great, with the participation in the industry has just been phenomenal.
That's great to hear. And I know timelines are always tough, but like if we brought you back in a year, where do you think we might be?
I think that we'll actually be pretty far along. And does everybody have to like take a pledge and say, I am going to adopt all of these standards? Not necessarily, but if as an industry, we know what the standards should be, Then it's between a brand and a retail media network on whether or not that retail media network adopts those standards. And then a brand can decide how do they want to spend with that retail media network as a result of it. And so we're all, as a retail media network, we're in the client service business. And it's up to us to decide how much friction do we each individually want to take out of the equation by operating off of these standards or not. And then, it's a business decision and a philosophy that each retail media network will then have the opportunity to accept, reject, and have a reason for rejecting or ignore, but at least clients have a baseline to operate from.
That's great. And it all sounds so very promising. That wraps up this episode of Clarity in Commerce. On behalf of everybody here at the Mars Agency, I just want to first thank Kristi Argyilan from Albertsons Media Collective for being here, giving us all the great perspective and helping to lead the way towards standardization of the industry. Kristi, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I have to, call out to the Mars Agency for being a great leader in this space too. So we appreciate the efforts that you put forward in this space.
Also want to thank all of our listeners out there today. We know your time is very valuable. You got a lot to learn about retail media. So we appreciate you giving us some of your time today. We hope you're leaving with some thoughts that can help you along the way. If you're looking for more information about best practices in retail media, please visit the Insights and Thinking blog on the marsagency.com website, where we've got a lot of information that can help you along. That includes the latest edition of our retail media report card, where we evaluate 14 top platforms across 65 criteria. And then, of course, we hope to see you back here again in a couple of weeks for the next edition of Clarity in Commerce. Have a great day.